departments and the important work that you do. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I think I was going to go around and ask people to introduce themselves. If you can identify if you're a commission member or if you're representing a commission member, please let us know. We'll start with kind of our in-person crew here at DCJS. Dean has introduced himself. I'm going to ask Dr. Jeffrey Butts.
Okay, I'm Jeffrey Butts, and I'm a research professor at John Jay College and a member of the commission.
Good morning. I'm Teresa Scanu-Hansen of the OPCA Juvenile Probation Operations team here at DCJS.
As I said, I'm Matt Charton. I'm the Deputy Director at the Office of Probation and Correctional Alternatives.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Frank Cangiano, Manager of Adult Probation Operations here at DCJS Office of Probation and Correctional Alternatives.
Thank you. And that takes care of our in-person squad. So, Joe, I'm going to ask you to go ahead in this Hollywood Squares kind of picking who's next.
I'm Joe Wargo, a commission member from Jefferson County Probation in Watertown, New York. And sitting with me is...
I'm Dan Connor. I am here as the president for the New York State Probation Officers Association.
Thank you both. Moving Hollywood Squares. Judge Zayas.
Morning, everyone. Good to see you all. I understand that I've been a commission member for some time, but I actually just opened up these emails yesterday and learned that I am a commission member. So happy to be part of this group. I apologize that somehow, there's a lot of, I'm the chief administrative judge of the New York State court system. Apparently there's still, I thought that I understood every part of this job in the 18 months that I've been doing it, but I just learned about my membership on this committee. So happy to be on it, and sorry that it took me so long to attend the meeting. And I will try to be as involved as I could. Once I began opening up the attachments, I thought it was important for me to have some of the chief of staffs of my deputy chief administrative judges. So those are the folks that are at the end of the one of the squares, many of the squares at the end, as well as my first deputy chief administrative judge, Judge St. George, who's on as well.
Thank you, Judge Zayas, and welcome to the Probation Commission. And we certainly do appreciate your office's participation on the commission. Thank you. Ana Bermudez, you are next.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ana Bermudez. I'm the former commissioner for the New York City Department of Probation. Good to see you all. And I'm a commission member. Thanks.
Thank you, Ana. Rocco Pozzi.
Rocco Pozzi. I'm the Commissioner of Probation for Westchester County, and I'm a commission member.
Patty Clemens. Patty Clemens.
Good morning, everybody. Patty Clemens with OPCA. I am the Director of Training.
Thank you, Patty. Nicole.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for your patience while I was trying to help through the technical issues. Nicole Aldi, I am the manager for the Alternatives to Incarceration Unit here at DCJS, which includes pretrial.
Thank you, Nicole. Michelle.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Clark. I manage the Vocation, Education, Employment Reentry Unit here at OPCA. The programs that we oversee in my unit are the County Reentry Task Forces, as well as the Employment Focused Services programs, as well as, I guess I should say, the Workforce Development Specialist Training Program.
Kimberly?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kimberly Chavone, and I am the manager of the Fiscal and Administrative Management Unit in OPCA.
Kimberly, and is it Andrea Bentley?
Hi, my name is Andrea Bentley. I'm Chief of Staff to Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for Courts Outside New York City, James Murphy.
Thank you. And Dennis Rio.
Good morning, Dennis Rio, representing Deputy Chief Administrative Judge Adam Silvera.
Thank you. And how about Janine?
Good morning. My name is Janine Wonder. I am the Chief of Staff to First Deputy Chief Administrative Judge Norwich. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you. And Judge St. George? You're on mute.
You're on mute, Judge St. George. Judge St. George is the first Deputy Chief Administrative Judge of the court system. He's my right hand. It seems like I probably over-invited a lot of these chiefs of staffs. I thought it was you folks. I saw the agenda and I thought, I'd like to get some of my team on to find out what this was all about. So Judge St. George, I'm sure he's like our tech guy, so I'm surprised we can't hear him. Oh, there he is. Can you? Yeah, we still can't hear you, so we still can't hear you. I introduced you already, my friend.
Judge Vance, we appreciate you over inviting people.
Oh, good.
It's better to have a lot of people on in the conversation than too few. So thank you for that. Carrie plans? Is that
It's Carl Flores.
Hi. I'm Carl Flans. I'm Principal Law Clerk to Chief Administrative Judge Zayas.
And Rosemary Martinez Borges.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on today's meeting. I serve as the Deputy Chief of Staff for Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for Justice Initiatives, Edwina Richardson.
Thank you. And Kelly Palmetier.
Good morning, Kelly Palmetier. I'm the manager of the Interstate Compact Unit at OPCA.
Thank you. And Paul Lewis.
Paul is having some technical issues that are preventing him from getting out.
Yeah, Paul Lewis is also from my team as well, so he'll probably just be listening today.
Appreciate that. And last but certainly not least, Katie Cullen.
Good morning. My name is Katie Cullen. I work at OPCA as the Administrative Specialist 1.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you everybody for joining us, whether it be remotely or in person. The commission really appreciates everybody's input. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the May 23rd, 24 Probation Commission minutes. If you haven't had the opportunity to take a look at them, I would ask that you please do so, and I will give you a minute to take a look, and if there's anything that you may see needs to be fixed, we'll certainly take a look at that and do so.
Thank you, Matt. And while people are reviewing those minutes, there is one correction on page 6 of the minutes. On the top of that page, where it indicates reaccessing youth at the extension and allowing for the juvenile substitution contact. You change the wording from reaccessing to reassessing as a proper term for that particular page.
Okay. Okay, everybody having the opportunity to take a look at those, I would ask for commission members' approval of the minutes of May 23rd, 2024.
I'll move it, Joe. Rocco.
I second that, Joe Wargo.
And Joe Wargo seconds. Thank you. Minutes are approved. I think it's approved.
Yes, absolutely. For those of you who are unaware, New York City executive law allows for the appointment of a probation commission that serves at the advice and consultation for the commissioner of DCJS, as well as the Office of Probation and Correctional Alternatives. The specific sections in New York City Executive Law 242, 243, and 246 outline the role of the Probation Commission as it relates to consulting with our office, consulting with DCJS on matters relating to probation services. In the past, Probation Commission meetings were traditionally report out meetings where our office would report out on information to the commission based on the things that we were doing within DCJS OPCA. Recent conversations we've had with the commission and internally here have brought us to perhaps change the style of these meetings, both today and moving forward. Not to simply us just reporting out information to the Probation Commission, but to really seek the advice, the consultation, feedback from the commission members as a whole when it comes to current priorities related to probation across the state. So this is kind of the first of these meetings that will take this format. So I'm really hoping to have some really organic conversations throughout this meeting when it comes to these topic areas, because there's centuries of experience both in this room and virtually. So we should certainly try to draw on that experience as we look to enhancing and working towards resolving some of the issues regarding probation practice across the state as well.
So thank you. We really want the commission to realize, the purpose, and that is, I think very simply, it's to advise, the Office of Probation Correctional Alternatives (DCJS) in matters relating to probation. And as Frank said, we really want to kind of empower the commission to feel like they can do that. So moving forward, and we did it this time as reaching out to commission members, asking for input in the agenda, trying to get items on there that matter, that are important to commission members, and having a discussion around them. So, then moving forward, that's really what we want to do. We really want to empower the commission to realize its full purpose. So, thank you, Frank.
Thank you. No, I can take the number 5. So moving on to the next item in the agenda, regarding probation constituent representatives. I don't see that Alan Frisbee is here virtually at this meeting, but I understand that that Rocco may be able to talk briefly on perhaps some of the concerns from COPA, or the Council of Probation Administrators. Because I know that Rocco and Alan talk frequently regarding that. So I didn't know if Rocco had any feedback for us from COPA. Looks like you're on mute, Rocco.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I've spoken to Alan, but I didn't get any specifics from Alan on what he was interested in bringing to the meeting. I know he and I talked about a couple things that I put on the agenda, but I really can't give you any feedback from Alan concerning what COPA wanted to present at the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Rocco. We appreciate that.
And Alan may be able to join us at some point during this meeting, and maybe he can.
Yeah, I think they had a meeting today. I think COPA had a executive committee meeting today. So I think Alan did say that if they got done early enough, he might jump on.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rocco. So we may go back to that agenda item later on during this meeting. Next on the agenda, we do have Dan Connor here, president of the New York State Probation Officers Association. Dan's here to talk with us about New York State POA survey that was conducted on critical incidents. And for those in person, it is part of your folder. It's in your folders here as survey results. And it was sent out to both the field and all others on this call. So maybe, Dan, if you wanted to provide us a little bit of a history as to maybe the reasons why this survey was thought of, and then maybe talk with us about the results too.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a board, we every year we try to go to Albany and try to push for bettering, obviously, the job as a whole across the state for probation officers. And one of the pushes that we had was for peer support within. Our goal was to get that to every department, and I mean, the state has done a great job of helping make that happen, and I feel like that's really just come leaps and bounds. And the other side was a push for 207C for officers. That's later in the agenda here as well, I can see. So we did this survey to kind of get a idea, just a quick snapshot of what officers across the state have been involved in any kind of critical incidents and how that was handled at a local level for them and how they felt about that response. And it was a lot of similarities, but I mean, just like we all know here, every county is different. There were some things that were a bit of a concern. I will say with the survey results, we saw that peer support after a critical incident has become a much more regular thing and much more available for everybody, which has been great. The biggest issue and things that people really don't understand is without the 207C locked in for probation, we really are kind of left to the whims of our local counties being able to respond if we're involved in an incident. And it's we've tried to push at Albany to get things through, and I believe this may be the fourth run of some form of 207C going through that. It appears that it's going to go through both houses and hopefully get signed on the governor's desk this time instead of vetoed. But
yeah, can I just interrupt you just for the purpose of people who are in this meeting that might not be familiar with 207C? Could you just tell us what it is? I know we're going to have a discussion, a further larger discussion later, but what is 207C?
So there's a lot of things that are tied in with 207C. The big carrot that people like to look at is it gives the option for a 25-year retirement and things like that. But the nuts and bolts of it that we really are concerned about is the disability aspect of it on the side, where more and more, just by the nature of society and the nature of our job, officers are put in a spot where we could be in the same exact scenario as our local law enforcement, and they have that coverage if they're injured at work, and we don't fall under that same umbrella. So at the grassroots level, we're looking at it to protect our officers. That's our biggest goal. The other side of it, obviously, the one that really gets people on board is when they start looking at that retirement stuff. And I feel like it's kind of gotten knotted up through the state because they look at it as a cost to the state, and it doesn't come back as any kind of financial burden for the state itself. It just gives us that local home rule option where it's cleared through the state and there's a set precedent. And I think that's the biggest thing, because right now the couple counties that have gotten some form of a 207C, it's their own county's version. And I think if we were able to get some kind of regulation from the state that came down for us to be able to take to our local legislators, it would be a huge step.
Thank you, Dan. Was there anything in the survey results that spoke to you about just specific incidents that officers were seeing more often than not, or?
Are you talking in regard to more common incidents that occur? Is that what you said? I'm sorry.
Yes, anything that you saw from the survey results.
Nothing like that really stood out as a really common thing. A lot of I think the issue with ours is it's officers put in a lot of the incidents were in the commission of the more law enforcement side of it. There's obviously the preponderance of the job side where it's just, you see awful stories repeatedly, and that's the life you live for the entirety of this career. You get to see all kinds of awful stuff. But it's most of the responses that we got with the critical incidents were officers that were involved in dealing with individuals that had warrants. One of them that really goes to show why it's a danger for us is it was a next door neighbor. It was an angry neighbor. It wasn't just a probationer that we were dealing with. It was, somebody that just out in the community that came out. So it's officers when they go into homes, when they do this job the way that we're supposed to, there's an inherent risk that comes with it. And it's that seemed to be the overriding thing is people just want that protection on the back end.
Okay, thank you for that. It looks like, Anna, you have a hand raised.
Yes. So did I read the survey correctly that there were 93 replies, and then were there only the counties listed? Were the only counties that replied, or was that just a highlight?
I believe that there was a cutoff with the printout that came through.
Oh, okay.
I apologize for that.
No, that's fine.
I know for a fact that there were more than just Onondaga, Tompkins, and Wayne because I was one of the officers that submitted, and I'm in Jefferson. So
Yeah.
I can assure you. And actually, there's another part in here without taking everybody. Right at the very top, you can also see that just the nature of a survey like this, it's not mandated. 291 people started it, but only 93 completed the entire survey. So it was it would be great to see this done on a statewide level where it was handed out to each department for directors and commissioners to hand down to their officers with a kind of a promise of anonymity and letting people know that they'll be safe on their responses. But I think if we took a full state view, we would see very similar numbers, though, to the percentages that came in with this.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And I mean, Frank or Matt, you can tell me if this would be on a separate agenda item. But one of the things that we used to face a lot in in the city, trying to make the job safer, obviously, and within the context of the rise of all the gun violence, right, was that there's certain, we were asking for and judges were granting, right, some of the searches, random searches that we would do in cases of robberies, assaults, or weapons, that kind of stuff. And for that, we needed to send groups of 3, so that to do, to secure the perimeter, all that stuff. But then there's the attendant budget issues that don't allow us to have enough staff to do that, right? So I don't know if that's a separate thing or not, but I think that because there's not a lot of full understanding of the demands of probation when we're doing the law enforcement piece of our jobs, that then it affects budgetary issues or whatever. So I just wanted to raise that. I don't know whether it fits into the advocacy piece or even the within the retirement. I don't know, but I think that's a big issue, especially now with all the violence issues that we're seeing.
Are you talking about the budgets that your county provides, or are you talking going back to state reimbursement, or?
I think a little bit of both, because obviously locally, like a lot of our budgets come from local allocations, right? But it would be great if OPCA could weigh in on even on those county, I don't know, that there would be a sort of like a joint effort at whenever a county was in their budgetary cycle, that there would be some, I don't know, I don't know what's possible, but and then taking that into account also for the state grant as well.
I think it's certainly worth following up on and see if OPCA can be an advocate for local probation departments during that budget process. Something that I'm sure has to be run through our Office of Legal Services, but it's certainly something that we can have a further discussion about. Dr. Voss?
I just want to say that doing this survey is a great idea, and I share the concern about the response rate. And there are ways to get a better response rate using online survey tools, and you have to entice the respondent and assure them about their confidentiality, and that's all possible with an online tool. And my next thought as a researcher is, have you checked or has anyone looked to see if similar information is available about other states. And if not, it'd be useful to do, to tap into other states, because the best way to embarrass your own state about these kind of policies is to show them that they're behind.
We looked a little bit into other states. We weren't able to find really much of anything that compared to what we were asking for, and just the overall reporting incidents, critical incidents on any kind of federal level is almost non-existent with the probation side of stuff. There's the law enforcement database where they keep all that for police, but there's really nothing that lumps us in on that. So it is hard to get any other kind of research. But yeah, I mean, if we could find another template that's worked better, I'm all for it.
Thank you, Dan. Does anyone else have any feedback or response for Dan in regards to the New York State Probation Officer Association survey?
No, it's Rocco. I just wanted to, bring to some of our new people who were on this, in this meeting, about the funding, for probation, which Anna was talking about, the need, that the cost associated with us now doing a lot of business in the off hours, which has got to be covered by overtime money. Because I think we're all finding out now that probation is not a 9 to 5 function anymore. We spend a lot of time in the field, and we spend a lot of time in the off hours. And just to let the judges know and the staff to know that at one point the state was obligated to pay 48% of the cost, for probation activities. And I think the last budget, Matt, I think it was down to about what, 8% now we get from the state on, on probation aid. So I think the shift in the cost, to operate probation departments has been, has shifted to the counties. That there's not a whole lot of support, financial support. I mean, OPCA has been great, in working with us on regulations and actually advocating for us. The decrease, in the state aid judges, is not because OPCA hasn't been up there advocating, for us, for that not to happen. But it's been a long time since there's been an infusion, of additional aid to probation departments around the state to allow us to really carry out, not only our social work functions that we do most of the times during the day, but the law enforcement activities that need to take place in the off hour, and the need to send multiple officers out, in teams, to go into some of these dangerous areas, where our staff is in harm's way. So the cost, mounts up, and it's a real, financial burden on the part of the counties, to pick that up.
Rocco, what do you think the courts could do to increase, to change that trajectory of the budget reduction?
Well, the court has been great. I mean, all the year I've been here a long time, Judge. And I've worked with Judge Lippman when he was the chief administrative judge. And all the AJs that followed him. And the court has been wonderful in supporting probation and advocating for us. It's just in all the years that I've been here, Judge, I can't figure out why there is such a reluctancy on the part, of the state, to recognize the important role that probation plays, not only in supporting the courts, but our contributions to public safety, and when we're out there doing the, performing our jobs, and making sure that our communities are safe. So I wish I had an answer for you, Judge. I just can't. I think if I can figure it out, I'm going to transfer to Brookings, and I'll be down in the think tank. So but that's why I put on the agenda, a discussion for 207C and for a 25-year retirement, for probation. So and I'll hold up on that until you come to my turn on the agenda. But I can't figure it out, Judge. I don't know. But I mean, any help we can get, is great.
Right. I mean, I wonder, there's been a lot of talk in the legislature about the need to divert folks from incarceration. And to me, my view is that probation can be a big help with that, and maybe that part of sort of the pretrial services and alternatives to incarceration, interim probation, that type of thing might be the type of thing that might be really appealing to at least the legislative branch, but also to the executive branch, where, you know, we've been asked to do all sorts of things in terms of mental health programs, et cetera. And it's just that we are busy trying to get our own budget passed through the executive, but I certainly wouldn't mind mentioning this need for probation, the state to pay its fair share of probation services as well. And when I testified before the joint legislative committees that happened at the end of January, beginning of February. So I'm glad I heard you say that.
Judge, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about alternatives to incarceration. Probation is the #1 alternative to incarceration. It's the most 80% of the dispositions in this country, you know, from the court are probation sentences, you know, and yet, you know, the important role that we play is just totally underfunded, you know, and not only in New York, but, you know, this exists around the country, right, Anna? I mean, you and I have had a lot of contact with people from around the country, and, you know, it's always a struggle to try to get money for probation departments for some reason.
Yeah, and to appeal to Jeff, using research hasn't even helped in terms of like all the risk-based research that talks about how people with, we're supposed to do the assessments, and high-risk people need more attention and lower caseloads for probation, but it doesn't translate into money. I don't know if we can leverage research better, and we just haven't had like a good run at that. But I think there's all the research out there that says how we should be staffing our divisions, but that doesn't seem to really result in,
Yeah,
better.
Judge, Judge, many years ago, when Judge Lippman was chief administrative judge and Judge Kay was the chief judge, you know, they had a commission put together to explore the possibility of moving probation under the courts, because, you know, he was getting so many complaints from around the state from his judges that probation departments weren't in a position to supply, you know, to the courts the support that they needed to carry out their mandates. You know, that's how bad. And this was in the height of the big, gigantic cuts that were occurring, you know, in probation aid back then. You know, so this has been going on a long time.
Sorry, I was muted. I recall this. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt someone? I'm sorry.
Not at all, Judge Ask. Go ahead.
I think judges across the state are really interested in this discussion, and are interested in particularly interim probation, as well as probation itself as an alternative to incarceration. But also, when you put interim probation and alternatives to incarceration together, it's the type of thing that I think legislators in particular are very eager to support. When you think about the other bills that the legislature has been attempting to pass. So we're interested in this. I'm not sure we're so interested that we want probation to be under the courts, a department of the unified court system, because there might be separation of powers issues, et cetera. But I'm sure that Judge Lippman had a good reason to suggest that.
Well, we found out that the costs were astronomical, you know, to try to do something like that.
Yeah,
you know, so,
right.
but it was, it was a good, to explore the possibility, but maybe even more to bring it to the attention of, you know, of people that, hey, look, the court's stepping up here saying, hey, there's something wrong. You know, we got to do, why should we have to take it over? It's really your responsibility, you know, to fund probation adequately so they can fulfill their mandates.
We're in a season right now where there's, at least in New York City, there's a big discussion of Rikers Island and what are we going to do about the the new Rikers, the new local detention facilities, and I don't want to talk too much or take up too much time, but if there were ever a time to talk about probation, at least in New York City, Jonathan Littman's new commission on Rikers is in the process of issuing. I mean, they might have done it already. The court system is trying to do case processing, and probation, I think, would be a big part of that because it would avoid sending folks to Rikers Island. So.
Well, Judge, just to let you know, Anna Bermudez and I are both on that commission. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so if you need to have any further discussions about that, I'm sure Anna will make herself available as I will. So.
Right.
Any other commission member wish to be heard? Okay, thank you. And I don't know if we can, if you want to discuss maybe actionable items in which we can take in this space that the commission, would like to do. But certainly, if there is something, then the floor is open now. And certainly, in the future, if commission members have any ideas, DCJS is always ready to listen and to help facilitate.
I mean, I don't want to take up too much time. I know that this is my first time, and I feel like I'm talking too much already. My first time at this commission meeting. But as I was reading the survey, and so I don't have the historical perspective that I'm sure many of you might have, having sat on this commission. But has a survey been conducted along the lines that the Westchester, that Rocco was talking about judicial interest in like how judges feel about what probation can do? I wonder whether that's something that might be helpful to us. What judges might like to see changed for the good in the probation department, and how judges might see themselves being able to use probation to promote alternative to incarcerations dispositions. I know, for example, a judge in Queens uses interim probation a lot in the youth court cases, and she finds it very, very helpful to have those reports and the probation officer, and the budgeting for that. Sounds to me like something the legislature would support based on the things I've been hearing from them. And I wonder whether and maybe this is beyond the scope of your question originally, but I wonder whether or not we should implement some type of survey of what judges across the state might like to see, might like to use probation for. Pretrial. And I mean, obviously, it's always a good thing to avoid incarceration by putting someone on probation, but there's a lot of the discussion about how to handle cases is really like how to resolve them, and how to avoid the difficult cases. Like the easy cases, probation might be the answer. It's the difficult cases that nobody really wants to push to trial, but we want to figure out a way not to send this person to jail. But judges are a little nervous about doing it, and they want to take a chance on, especially someone who's out, who's not in on bail. And sometimes, from my perspective, it sounds like probation can play an important role in that. And I wonder whether we've done that. Maybe we've done that before. I don't know, Frank. I don't know if we've done that before. I mean, I don't know who's the elder statesperson on this commission, but and who would have that history. But I'm wondering. It's really a question of whether we've done that before, and should we think about doing it?
I hate to call him out, but Rocco, not older. I don't want to use that term, but the longest standing committee member that I know of is who might have a historical perspective is Commissioner Posey.
You know,
Just so the record's clear, I used the word elder, not older.
Okay, I'm sorry.
you know, it might be interesting to dust off those old commission findings because I think they did do some type of survey, you know, because on that commission, Judge, there were a lot of judges that participated, you know, from around the state, you know, and I think there were two reports that were actually issued, one about criminal court and the other one about the family court. You know, but that, like I said, that's a long time ago. But I think all of us who have been around for a while know that, you know, issues are cyclical. They're here today, and 10 years from now, they may be gone for a couple of years, and then they come back. I'm going to see if I can, find those reports. And Judge, if I find them, I'll send them to you. You can take a look at it. But I would think that a lot of the discussions that were taking place back then are still discussions that are taking place today. So
everything across the state is, these are all dovetailing into each other. When we're talking about funding, it's data driven, research driven. So surveys are always a good idea, which was the POA survey that went out that we just discussed with Dan was a grassroots from the bottom up. And I think that's the way maybe what we're, and Judge, if I'm not putting words into your mouth, maybe from the top down kind of a survey to see what's the other feeling from the other side, and we're looking at alternatives to incarceration for adults, but we also have the family court component as well, the juvenile population, which is really was the catalyst behind, the whole raise the age was, Rikers Island is pretty much where that started. And that kind of drove the whole movement across the rest of the state. Obviously, we want to keep, and I don't want to jump into Rocco's comments about lack of detention beds, but that's a steady, constant issue, is we still sometimes have people that need to be removed from the community for various reasons. And in a county where I'm at, we have no beds available for any kind of detention services. Unless you're in a major county like Erie, Monroe, Onondaga, Capital District, Westchester, New York, whatever, we don't have access to the beds, and they're not in our catchment area. We don't have contracts. What do we do with them? And this commission knows that in our county, we've had to hold a juvenile in a hotel room with probation officers 24/7 around the clock for a significant period of time. And that's a recipe for disaster, quite honestly. And when you're looking at liability. So, I think the data is out there for sure. We just got to somehow harness this information and figure out what to do with it.
And just a couple of last points on this. If first and foremost, Judge asked, we really appreciate your input. So please don't apologize for speaking up during this process as a commission member. We really do appreciate it. And I think this is what I've always wanted how the commission should act. Like the commission members should really be, running the commission meetings. Traditionally, it's been kind of DCJS, who's kind of sat here and kind of talked a lot. And I thought that the commission members really never kind of drove me. So thank you to the commission members for, your continued input. And I hope this is the way that it does continue. Lastly, my final point is, we focused a lot about the law enforcement aspects of probation departments, but I do want to make sure and reinforce that, improving people's lives, working with people, making appropriate referrals, continuing to work with them where they're at is really the other part of that probation equation. And I really want to make sure that we identify that and the great work that probation departments do every day in helping people improve their lives, which again does relate to public safety. But I just want to make sure that I get that plug in there for the work that probation departments do statewide in that space.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everybody, for your feedback, comments in regards to these issues. I think a lot of this is just not only building awareness about these issues, but also maintaining that awareness, right? And that we know that the criminal justice culture changes and evolves over time, and new issues may arise from it. So we appreciate all the response and feedback from all the commission members during this meeting. Moving down to item number 6, probation commission items. So these were items that were requested from the commission members for the purpose of this meeting to have more of a deep dive discussion when it comes to these 4 items here. And the first item we have is a request for update on training for seniors, supervisors, administrators, those who have supervisory roles across probation departments in the state. And luckily we have Patty Clements, our training director here, who can provide an update for us on how these types of trainings are being developed. So Patty, floor is yours.
Thank you, Frank. Good morning, everybody, or maybe it's good afternoon at this point. Good to see everybody, and happy holidays to you all coming up. So in terms of the training that we've been planning for the supervisors, this has been in the works for quite some time, and I know several of you who are on this meeting have been part of this plan for at least 7 years now. I look back in the records, and we started a supervisor's course in 2017, if you can believe that. And unfortunately, there have been a number of competing priorities that have stymied it, right, including the Raise the Age legislation and some significant changes in the training requirements. On and on the list goes. But last year, about this time, we did get an outline put together. So my staff dedicated some time to being able to work with the probation professionals across the state. She convened a work group. And we have a pretty good outline at this point to work from. I'm happy to say we got a lot of feedback from the field. We are now convening a work group in-house of our probation supervisors who are employed with OPCA and trying to finalize what we think is going to be a week-long in-person course for supervisors. Now, just to give you a little bit more context in the vision that we have for this course, that 1 week our vision is to surround that 1 week with a variety of different synchronous and asynchronous courses. We're currently waiting on the acquisition of software that will allow us to build those courses. But our plan is when a new supervisor is promoted, we'd like to get that individual immersed in training within, say, 3 months' time. So if you can imagine over the course of a year, we would have at key moments, maybe 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, we would have training that we could offer those folks. And somewhere around the 6-month mark is when we think we would want folks immersed in the in-person training. And I think, the work group and the folks here at OPCA and myself really are trying to structure that week so it's similar to the information you would get in fundamentals. There's a lot of activities, a lot of exercises, trying to get folks in real life scenarios rather than lecture, right? We know we can use the tools that we have in our virtual realm to be able to provide information, but what we want to do when we have a captive audience in the classroom is to get them engaged and really doing the work that supervisors do every day. And so the challenge is trying to build something that doesn't take an eternity, right? 4.5 days is what we're shooting for because we know that folks have a lot of work to do back at their departments. And there's so much information that we want to be able to give to that line of management. It's been a gap in the system for a very long time. So currently, like I said, the work group has finished its job. We are now working internally with our internal OPCA work group. And my hope is that we can pilot our first course out somewhere around the summer of 2025. That's our intention. The other big part of the equation, and Anna, I do see your hands. The other big part of the equation is I will at some point need to survey the departments to find out exactly how many supervisors are made in a given year, right? We need to get an idea of the scope of this number because, with a very interactive classroom, we're talking about maybe 20 to 25 people at a time. And if we're hiring or we're promoting, hundreds of supervisors, we're going to be a very busy office trying to keep up with that pace. So that is one of the steps that we need to start incorporating now that we're getting closer to a product. I will need to get a sense of what exactly those numbers look like and how we can appropriately plan for them. But Anna, please, your question?
A question, and I was wondering if I could be involved in the process at all. I'd love to participate.
Would love
and commend you for addressing that gap, because that is always, in this particular business, we have people who excel at being probation officers who may not be great supervisors, and the reverse. Some probation officers who are okay, but are great team builders, great, and make great supervisors. So, but then we promote them and it's like, okay, go to it. It's like, so yes, so thank you for that, because I think that's a really important aspect.
Yeah,
to the work.
absolutely. And Anna, we do have some meetings that are coming up right after the holidays, so we can certainly loop you in. Honestly, if there's others who, feel like they want to jump in, we're happy to get that input, because we really do want to get this right the first time. And you're 100% correct. We do a really good job, I think, at training our line officers. And then it kind of falls off, right? And folks, like you said, they get promoted, and then they're floundering around a little bit. And thank God, we have a lot of fantastic people who just naturally have abilities. But it is our responsibility to be able to make sure they have the tools and the training and the skills that they need to do that effectively. So thank you for that. Yeah, Joe?
So again, it comes back, a lot of this is, we mentioned the word funding earlier, and is this, in your vision, would be mandated for supervisors, or like an enrichment offering optional thing for departments to tap into as another resource? I mean, I think it's a fantastic idea. I'm a huge proponent. And when I became supervisor was February of 2020, which was also coincided with the very beginning of COVID, which was a whole anomaly in and of itself. And so there was nothing consistent. So here, I was one of those guys, here it is kind of what you do, and have at it, have fun, see ya. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I don't envision this as being something that's, a mandate. It's certainly not anticipated to be written into the regulation, but I can't imagine that folks won't jump on it if it's available, right? And again, not knowing, as I'm talking to you right now, exactly how many people I'm even, the scope, how many supervisors are out there, and, do we start from a point forward and get those folks through the training and then try to work backward? It's going to involve a lot of resource on our end to try and pull that off, and run folks through this training. So right now, I don't see it as a mandate, and that may change, if the landscape changes and resources change. But Joe, we just want to be able to get something out there for folks to support you.
And I'll just follow up with that, Patty. We're not looking to throw out another unfunded mandate to probation department. So, but as Patty said, I think it's a course that departments will look at really as a worthwhile opportunity, and we can always discuss internally at DCJS the opportunity to provide scholarships or some kind of funding opportunities to bring people to DCJS for that funding, for that training. But more to come. And Anna, thank you for volunteering your time. You had to know we were going to jump on that. We were going to let you. I wrote it down too, and we're recording, so there's no minutes.
There.
Thank you very much for that.
So in addition to what we've got in the hopper here for supervisors, we've also been rethinking how we want to do what has formerly been called the executive leadership, right? So this is training for the executive administration within the departments. And Matt and I have had a lot of discussion about this. I think what OPCA has offered traditionally is not so much a leadership program, but more of an overview of what OPCA is and how we can support you, right? And so each of the managers that are represented here in this meeting have all kind of weighed in on how we can revamp this training. How do we get this so that it's something that's very useful to you as new administrators? But then we're also thinking, you know, we're not in the business of teaching people leadership skills. There's lots of other people out there in the world who can do that sort of thing. And I really think that we need to focus on, you know, another program that will really bring that part of the equation in. And I know there's been some ideas bounced around internally. There are lots of great programs out there, and so we're trying to think of the best way to get all of that information to you and support that role without, again, it becoming something that is a financial burden, right? We don't want to have people traveling. We can do the overview that we've offered to executives virtually. You know, we've brought folks into Albany and everybody's been great. We had a fantastic one, I believe it was 2022. We had a full house. But quite honestly, you know, we can do a lot of the information sharing over another means rather than having people having to travel into Albany because it's a big state. But the leadership piece, you know, again, I think that that's something that we want to brainstorm a little longer on and figure out what the best course of action is. I right now am gathering information from all of the managers about how they see the delivery of the overview of the work that they do. And we have our fundamentals course scheduled for April, so I'm trying to not do too many things at that same time. But it would be great if we could perhaps offer out the next overview for the directors who have been promoted sometime around May to get through the academy and then be able to focus our efforts there. And again, you know, I think that we can accomplish that virtually to avoid the travel. But we're certainly open to other options if people feel differently.
Thank you, Patty. Any commission members? Questions, comments? I'll just say, if you have ideas about leadership and how we can best affect leadership at the local level within your departments, we are open to your suggestions.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, commission members. So these next three items were items that we kind of touched upon earlier on in this meeting. This came from the commission itself as lack of juvenile detention beds statewide, 207C benefits for probation officers, as well as a 25-year retirement incentive for probation staff. All that came in from Rocco. So I didn't know if Rocco, you wanted to provide a little bit of maybe for the new people on this call, a little bit of background on the juvenile detention bed issue, and then also we can then open it up to the discussion. But I think we can put items C and D almost together because they do seem to be related to each other. So let's start off maybe with the juvenile detention bed issue.
Okay, well, I'd like to start out with some good news, okay, in that Westchester is, I just sent a letter to the dormitory authority advising them that Westchester is ready to proceed, you know, with the construction of a new detention facility. We had started the project about a year and a half ago, and got to a point where we had the program design, we had a lot of the work done, but you know, we needed to get an answer from the state, you know, on what percentage of this facility they would be willing to pay for, because under the raise the age legislation, excuse my voice, I've got a little bit of a cold. Under the raise the age legislation, they're obligated to pay 100%, you know, of the cost. And our existing detention facility not only is old and, you know, needs a lot of repair, but it's only a 24-bed facility, which is totally inadequate to support the 9th Judicial District, which is what we do down here. So, you know, the detention, just to let everybody know, the detention facility in Westchester is really a regional facility, you know. So, and not only do we take, kids from the 9th Judicial District, but if we have empty beds, which hasn't happened in a long time now, we do try to accommodate and help other counties, outside the 9th Judicial District, for detention. So we're going ahead and proceed, to construct a new 80-bed facility. But the cavalry is not coming over the hill, people. It's going to take, another 3 to 4 years, before we're going to see a facility available to handle, actually the crisis that we have right now in New York with the lack of juvenile detention beds. There are many days, judges on the call, there are many days, where people from around the state are making phone calls, not only to Westchester, but all over the state trying to find a bed, for either an AO or a JD, that needs to be in secure detention. And sometimes they can't find them. You heard Joe talk about, having a kid in a hotel room, and having, people assigned 24 hours to stay there in a hotel room. I mean, it's a real problem. And I've got to tell you, we get phone calls from our local police asking if we have a bed, available so they can execute a warrant. So that's not a good way to operate. So I think as a commission, I think we need to send the message, to the governor, because we're the governor's commission, to advise the governor that this is a crisis, and there needs to be some action, taken to come up with some immediate, temporary, solutions while we plan for long-term solutions like what we're doing in Westchester. So, Joe, anybody else want to jump in on what's going on in the state with the detention situation and secure detention? Please jump in.
So, and actually, and I will say this, and I've said it before to you, Rocco, that your county has bailed us out a few times on many occasions, and they're wonderful. But to transport a juvenile in Jefferson County, probation does our own transports. We don't rely on the sheriff's office. They're I think one of only 2 counties, or maybe the only county that does that. But with that said, it's a solid 5-hour trip from Watertown to the facility in Westchester each way. So you got 2 officers minimally on the road for 10-hour day, plus whatever breaks or, time at the facility, et cetera. That's a problem. The closest facility to us is Hillbrook, which is Syracuse, which is an hour south. And today I'd hate to make that trip in our lake effect storms that we've got going on today. I mean, that's a potential problem in and of itself. But most of the times they call us and they say, most of the times it's a no because they don't have room. And they're often telling us that they've got kids that are out on, offenses of egregious offenses like murders that they're putting on GPS because they don't have room. So I echo that sentiment. It is a major problem, and the more rural that you get, i.e., further away from a major metropolitan area that has these facilities, or if you're fortunate enough to be able to have a contract, you're scrambling trying to make arrangements and do things and keep these kids that in the community that probably should not be for various reasons. So I guess that's my vision or my stance on that is it continues to be an issue. And we try to be creative. We try to come up with options and other resources, and family members are, we exhaust everything that we possibly can before we get to that point. And we always do that. We've always done that. The problem is we still have these difficult, challenging cases that somebody used that word earlier that still require confinement in some way, shape, or form, either for their safety or the safety of the family that they are residing with or within the community. And again, it's problematic. And I don't know what the answer is short of Westchester building a bed, but again, it's a 5-hour trip for us.
Right.
And that's not even a guarantee.
Right. You got that. I think, one of the things that's bothered me throughout this adventure is the misperception that sometimes prevails up in Albany that family court judges are putting cream puffs in detention. You know,
True.
that doesn't happen. I mean, our family court judges in the Ninth Judicial District, and I'll speak for the entire state. Family court judges do not put kids in detention that don't need to be there, that are not dangerous. I mean, when we, I'm going to tell Judge Zay is this. I did a little thing for Bob Macaron when Bob was the director up there, because he was hearing this in a lot of meetings. And I took a look at my population that day. And at that point, I had 32 kids that were in detention in Westchester. 17 of them were there on homicide offenses. Stop and think about that. And the rest of them were there either on aggravated assaults, armed robberies, weapons offenses. You're not going to find kids that were shoplifting at Macy's in White Plains. It's not happening. And that's true around the state. And one of the things I think, that people didn't realize, and I think I realized this more than anyone because I ran the Westchester County Jail for 10 and a half years, okay, is that the 16 and 17-year-olds, when they were in the adult facilities, were the biggest headaches in the facility. It was the most dangerous areas that you could work. I couldn't get correction officers, to post bid and work in those sections because, they were really tough, the minor blocks, as they used to call them. So I think the facilities that were available to us when the law went into effect were totally inadequate to handle the adolescent offenders. So there's just been a lot of problems, with secure detention, around the state. So I think we're on the right track, at least down here, but I know it's a big problem in Suffolk County. It's a big problem throughout the entire state. So Matt, I put this on the agenda because I think we should send some communication to, the judge as her commission, to really, they need to be looking into this issue. It's a public safety issue. It really is.
I agree, 100%.
If I could
And
jump in.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Wargo. Sorry.
I had our family court judge, I believe it was last year, looked at me and said he remanded a kid to a detention, a secure detention, and we had told him ahead of time, there are no beds, Judge, with all due respect. We have no place to put this youth. And his response, it's not my problem. And I'm not trying to be glib about it. That was really a statement of where we are in our state of the union, so to speak, with regard to juveniles and detention facilities. Not my problem. We were on the phone with Office of Children and Family Services trying to make arrangements, and it's tough. Again, I don't know the answers, but it is a public safety issue for sure. Sorry,
I just wanted to say that obviously, as a last resort, what Jefferson County had to do in that situation with respect to Westchester, I mean, it's not only not good for the officers who have to take out the time, but it's probably not good for the kid whose family now has to travel 5, and we're not even sure whether they're capable of that. And I think the idea is to keep young people like that as close to home as possible. So it's a solution, but it has its own problems. I was interested in what Commissioner Pazzi said about communicating with the governor about the need for, or the executive branch, the need for these facilities. And I wonder whether we have, I'm sorry for keep jumping in. I do have to leave in a little while. And I'm wondering whether or not I could get, when we find a date for the next meeting, I definitely want to be able to attend the whole meeting. So if I'll leave some of my staff on the meeting. I don't know if we choose a date for that at the end of this meeting. But to get back to what I was saying was, have we in the past done anything like that? Issued a letter to the governor saying that this has to happen, or to the legislature? Because I completely agree that this is a major problem, and it's getting worse the more that it gets reported. But I'm not just concerned about optics. Obviously, I'm concerned about there's a mandate, there's a legislative mandate to place these young people in particular facilities that are strictly defined, and there's no money to support that legislation. So, I mean, I don't want to do anything to upset the governor, obviously, as I'm putting my budget in to for approval. But have we done this before? Have we, as a commission, issued letters to the governor or to the director of, I guess, the DCJS? I don't know who would do this. What would be the appropriate process by which we put this on the executive branch's plate? I guess that's the question I have.
So, if we were to do something as a commission, it would have to go, we'd have to have a quorum. It would go to a vote to the commission members, and whether they decided to submit a letter as a body. That would be the first point. And if we don't have a quorum today, we could certainly set up a brief kind of follow-up meeting remotely and follow up on that subject. But I don't believe, and again, I hate to go back to Rocco, but he's got his historical perspective of the commission's activities, whether the commission has ever acted in that capacity. So
I think this would be a first, Matt. I don't recall in all the years I've been on the commission that we've ever had something like that. I know we've had discussions about a lot of important issues, and I think Bob, or whoever was the state director, would bring it back, to the head of DCJS, but I can never figure out what happened from that point on, whether it actually ever made it into the governor's office. So,
Do we have staff on our commission that can set forth who is responsible, whether it's, because I hear Commissioner Capazzi say that his county is building this new facility. Is this a county responsibility or a state responsibility? Do we have staff that can lay out all of this out for us so that we can make a considered judgment as to whether or not a letter or a conversation, a meeting could be had with folks from the executive branch? Do we have staff that can tell us what the parameters are of what we would be pushing? I mean, in other words, will we be asking for the counties to for the executive to give money to the various counties that need these facilities? Is that the idea, or that the executive would be paying for them?
well, the executive is obligated under the law, the new Raise the Age law, to pay 100% of any of the costs associated with Raise the Age. Now, obviously, like an example of Westchester, we had a 24-bed facility for the region. Now, we all know that 24 beds is not going to be enough, to take, not only continue to do the JDs that we normally got, but now you're going to have all the 16 and 17-year-olds that normally were housed in the county jails. We got to find space for them at our juvenile detention facility that's really not constructed, to handle them, but there's not enough room. So since we had to do an expansion, and the cost is directly associated to the Raise the Age legislation, the state is obligated, to work with the county to pay the costs that are associated with, that additional burden. Okay. So that's what we've been dealing with in Westchester. And we just got an answer back from the state, that they're going to work with us, and take on, a good bit of the financial, cost associated with the construction of the new facility. But that's got to happen throughout the state. Just not only in Westchester. Okay. Because as you hear my colleagues saying, it's a problem throughout the entire state.
And I know in the past too, if I can jump in, that there have been grassroots letters that have come up to the governor's office from State Probation Officers Association, also from COPA, the Council of Probation Administrators. And maybe we could, if it came to that, I mean, letters to whomever could come from both sides, from the State Probation Commission, from POA, from COPA, outlining what the problems are, or as a, you know, public safety issue, detention beds, et cetera. I don't know if that's correct or not, but we have done that. Would you agree, Commissioner Posey?
Yeah, and I know there's been a lot of discussions at NISAC about this,
Right.
every time I've gone to, the Public Safety Committee meeting that I'm a member of, the sheriffs are always talking about the issues, associated with, juvenile detention, whether it's transportation issues or whether it's the actual detention, finding space, for these kids, and the judge, Joe, that said that it wasn't his problem is absolutely right, because
Right.
it's the responsibility of the county to provide the space, that our judges need to have when they need to remand the kid. So that's, this is not a judiciary. We can't tell the judges you
Right.
can't put somebody in detention because we don't have a bed.
And I
We gotta
didn't disagree with him. The kid actually, I agreed with him, needed to be remanded, and he understood it. And he looked at the AFC, the attorney for the child, and said, with all, in kind of a tongue in cheek, he said, "Well, you have a garage," that it was. He understood the problem, but there was no real solution other than what we ended up being creative to do.
And Dr. Ross has a question.
Yeah, I'm not going to follow on his example and offer to help something. Because even this conversation, I don't know if I'm as elder enough as Commissioner Posey, but my first juvenile justice job was in 1980, and I've been doing research since then. And I would be happy participating in an effort to develop a letter which poses the question and raises the issue, but not offers the solution. Because this idea of just saying we need more beds has been around for decades, and you always hear that, and that's how we've built a massive prison complex in this country. But the question is resources and access. So if it were stated that way, I would not want to rest the entire issue on anecdotes and examples and stories. So you'd want to build some good, credible evidence of lack of access and the problems that causes, and then ask the governor's office to help come up with a solution, not just pretend that we know the solution and you should just go ahead and implement it.
Well,
So
it's just not a bed issue, and with these facilities, it's an issue that we just don't have enough space in these facilities to do the programs that we need to do also while we have these kids in custody. We should be doing something constructive with these kids, bringing in all kind of programs, educational programs, whatever their issues are. We should have programs available. And I can tell you, at least in Westchester, I don't have the space. I do have a number of programs that we run, but I need to run more programs and I just can't do it. So, we should be looking at state-of-the-art facilities, that not only treat individual, juveniles with respect, and it's a place that is, conducive to them changing their behavior, while we got them in custody for, until the court makes a decision about what they want to do with that child. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues involved in this.
Yeah. So in terms, is there any other commission member that wants to speak on this? I just want to be mindful of the time that we have together, not to say that this specific issue doesn't need a, further discussion. And, DC just is certainly willing to, facilitate that discussion. And thank you, Dr. Butts, for your comments. And so I just want to make sure, but if there's any commission member that has any comments on this, I want to make sure that we give them the opportunity to speak. So hearing none, and again, we hear that. I just want to, clarify that, the commission, the Probation Commission is kind of advisory to the to DCJS, ultimately Commissioner Rosado. So a letter that if the commission decides to go that route would be addressed to her as commission members, not saying COPA, POA, or other bodies could not speak directly to, the governor's office, but it would be to Commissioner Rosado, and then a decision would be made where we go from there. But I just want to make sure that that's clear. And I'm again willing to and likely, and I'm going to set up some time with the commission members to follow up on how the commission itself would like to proceed moving forward in this issue.
Thank you, Matt. And next items on the agenda are in regards to 207C benefits for probation officers statewide, as well as 25-year retirement incentive for probation staff. This is brought to our attention by Commissioner Posey. So, I'm sure if you wanted to start that conversation, or if any other commission members had anything they'd like to add when it comes to these two items.
Well, I think we've had some discussion already on it. I just wanted to bring a couple more points up about,
Sure.
There seems to be some confusion, about cost. So let me deal with 207C benefit first, which I think is the easiest one, to deal with. There's a lot of confusion, when there's discussion about the cost associated with 207C for probation, because they confuse us, about the cost that would be associated with us as compared to what goes on in corrections and what goes on in the police. Most of the times when correction officers and police officers go out, all right, they have got to be replaced, and it's usually a huge overtime issue, especially in correctional facilities. Okay, they got to hire people, they got to pay overtime, so, the more people you have out on 207C, the more money it costs you. Probation's a little bit different. A lot of times, when our people go out, caseloads are usually covered, by other officers. Supervisors take on some additional responsibility and cover cases, until our POs can come back. So, I think the argument, that it's going to be a huge financial burden to counties, to give 207C benefits to probation officers has been really overstated, and I think somehow we have got to get communications back either through NISAC or some other way to let our counties know that the cost that could be potentially associated, with 207C benefits for probation officers would probably be purely administrative, and how to, provide that, that benefit. So I just wanted to, bring that to the attention of, because I hear that from NISAC all the time. Well, we don't know if we can do this because it's going to be more money for the counties. Well, when it comes to 207C, you're not talking about a lot of money. Okay. So I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in on that, if they have a different perspective, but I just wanted to bring that to the floor around 207C.
Other commission members? Those of you who don't know, NISAC is New York State Association of Counties, just in case you didn't know that acronym.
And the other issue around 25-year retirement, I think we're now starting to see some issues around recruitment. I know COPA has had, several discussions about this, and when we're looking at tier 5s and tier 6s, having to work until they're 63 years old before they can retire. You hire a probation officer at age 25, 26 years old, that's a long time, to be working. And we all know how much this job has changed, how much field work we are now doing. We have people out in the field constantly. I mean, can we really expect probation officers to be able to carry full caseloads, and do all of the requirements of that caseload up to age 63? I mean, the federal government has a mandatory retirement at 55, for law enforcement people, and some people argue that might be too long, to have people working. All right, so and I'm seeing, and I've never seen this. I'm going to take my elder statesman hat, again, and say that there used to be a time when I hired people, they stayed until they retired. Now I'm finding, that people are leaving a lot quicker because they just can't see themselves working in this job until they're 63 years old. The new people now, they have, the young kids that we're hiring now have a completely different perspective, than what a lot of us have had. So I think that this, not having a 25-year retirement, for probation, is You know, this is going to continue to happen. I think we're going to have, I've heard from around the state that the, numbers of people who are taking the test for probation officer has gone down tremendously, and our hiring lists are getting shorter and shorter. So I think that this is an issue. And the 25-year retirement is a cost to the counties. There's no doubt about it. Okay. But then again, I'm going to throw something else out there. Every time probation asks for something and it involves money, they find money for corrections and they find money for the police. It's about time they start finding money for probation. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Any other commission members want to provide feedback or comments in regards to 25-year retirement incentive?
No, I just want to say I'm in favor of it. And we had lots of discussions at New York City Probation about this. And it was always on our legislative agenda, not necessarily approved by the larger executive branch to put forth, but yeah, I think it's necessary. And I agree with you, Rocco. We before I left, we were seeing so much turnover. Like when you looked at our overall turnover, it seemed okay. But when you honed in on who was leaving, it was the 0 to 5, 0 to 8 probation officers who we invested. Patty can, feel that pain of you spend so much time training them, so many resources, and then they leave us to go to corrections or police because those enticements are better, or out of county for us because other counties pay more. But it's a big issue. It's a big issue.
Thank you, Anna.
I just also agree with what's been said on this issue so far. Incentivizing people. I wouldn't want to work. I mean, I'm 55. I started here when I was 28, and it's 27 years was what I've got under my belt right now, and it's the only consistent thing with this job has been change. And starting over now, I don't want a caseload and being out in the field doing this stuff or working late at night. Have I done it? Yeah, but I don't really want to now at this age, and I'm afraid I'll break. So I think that 25-year retirement, and when I say break, I'm not talking mentally, I'm talking bones or whatever. But I think we've got to incentivize people that I don't want to work till I'm 63 or whatever. So I agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the only thing I would ask the commission membership is, actionable. What can we do to kind of further the discussion and move it into something that's like an actionable step to address these? Again, it doesn't have to be answered now, just we can have that discussion further. But if somebody's got thoughts and comments on that, I'd like to hear it. Hearing none, I will follow up on those two issues. And back to Frank.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, commission members, for your feedback on the probation commission items. We're now going to turn our focus to focal issues for commission feedback. Now, these were items that were actually brought up by our office from members of our staff here, things that we wanted to bring to the table to the commission members for a discussion. And the first being those highest risk gun-involved youth probation cases. And we have Teresa here from the juvenile unit that may be able to help kind of frame this issue for us before starting.
Just one thing, I know, being mindful of time, I would ask, OPCA people to be mindful of where we are time-wise, not to say that these are less important than the other items, but I do want to make sure that we're considerate of the members.
Sure. Because Matt's had many conversations with me that have lasted more than a couple of minutes on topics like this. So I wanted to bring this to the commission as a talking point because probation departments have brought it to us. In thinking about how probation departments continue to work with higher risk kids. Many gun involved. We've heard anecdotally from departments that working with kids that are before the court for gun charges is a newer practice for them. And as we continue to reinforce the basic evidence-based principles that we know to be true, one of which is continuing to find balance between risk management strategies for community safety and the child safety, and also ensuring that there's that balance for risk reduction strategies in how probation does their business. I wanted to bring that to the commission for discussion. Not only thinking about, taking detention off the table, but maybe thinking about it when probation is acting in supervising a young person pursuant to a predispositional release order. And we can talk about this however the commission members feel it's relevant, pursuant like to a family court, predispositional release order during the pendency of a family court case, or a criminal case in youth court, if that is important to distinguish. But also from a supervision perspective, when there's a probation supervision order out of the courts. And if you think it's worth discussing the relevance, if there's a distinction for when a young person might be higher risk and volunteering to participate in probation's adjustment services without the involvement of the court system from family court. So again, just putting it before the commission in a consultation role, I suppose, to provide some feedback for us as to how we can continue to reinforce topics or concepts or principles with probation personnel. It's a big one.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Especially, floor's open. Anyone who has feedback? Stumped.
Patty, can I be an older person and get a sort of reframing of it? I think I lost track at some point. So do you mind just at least the crux of the question? Sorry.
Sure. So we're hearing from probation personnel the challenges and just looking for guidance from us about how to be working with higher risk youth, particularly gun involved youth, but higher risk youth. So your perspectives about that.
Yeah, okay. So for what it's worth, I have found there's a combination of this implicates all the budget stuff we've been talking about, et cetera, because it means that a probation officer needs to work with very few young people, apply the approach of a positive youth justice, meaning that I'm not talking positive youth development. I'm talking about a total focus on the future and having it's almost you can't deal with the issues to deal with these young people, and in the sense of let me say anecdotally, well, not anecdotally, this happened. There was a person at Dr. Carrera who has a pregnancy prevention program that's very successful, and been criticized because it's so expensive, because what he discovered early on is that when he tried to address the pregnancy, getting, young people getting pregnant, that didn't change the pregnancy rates at all. And it wasn't until he focused on items like the future, like if the girls had future aspirations and felt like having a baby would get in the way of that cut down, pregnancy rates. Same with the boys. And he was, And so if we can't address that piece of it, forget gang. Like to me, there's never been like a gang intervention that works as a gang intervention. Like gang interventions that work are gang interventions that work because they get the young people to care about something else, and then they desist from the other. That whole thing. And then now there was a research paper that was done on how the vividness of how vivid you can make your potential future, that cuts down on delinquency much more than anything else. And that if you can't project a future, that contributes to delinquency. And so it's called something like vividness of the future self or something like that. That's really an interesting paper. Anyway, Jeff, would you like to say something about all this?
I want to see that paper.
Well, I think Anna, brings up a good point. I was getting ready to say that, a lot of these gun related, charges associated with the gangs more. I mean, and trying to deal with the gangs and trying to get the kids, out of the gangs, and to get them refocused into something else, is easier said than done. It's and a lot of these kids, that are getting arrested for these gun charges, are usually being arrested because, they've shot someone more than likely, or they attempted, to shoot somebody, so, it's a difficult, I mean, it's a tough problem. I mean, it really is. I don't know what to tell you on this one is,
Well,
it's,
yeah, I mean, I think in addition to low caseloads, it's also talk about it like this is an in the field, approach that has to borrow a lot from the ROCA model of relentless pursuit of a relationship first, and then like steering into other things, knowing that the kids are going to get probably potentially rearrested again, because it doesn't happen overnight, and our system doesn't have a high tolerance for one step forward, two steps back. And so you know what we've seen is that sometimes if we're on the right track, the rearrests are not for guns, or they just like still are kind of in that sort of pressure cooker of their peers, which is huge. So I mean, I could go on for days on this, but I'm happy to talk to anybody about it who
Yeah.
wants to dive into it.
When you really think about it, it's not that complicated of an issue. The answer is you got to get these kids out of that environment. All right. And you got to get them into a new environment. And you don't want that new environment to be a correctional facility.
Correct.
So, but where is the new environment? To get them into a more healthier environment and get them away from the gangs, and sometimes even away from their own families, because their families could be involved in the gang. I mean, that's how deep it goes. So this is it's a complicated issue.
I mean, I think Jeff is a really important piece of this puzzle too, because you've done so much research on these issues, that um, and I think we do have answers. I just don't think we've put them together well enough.
Especially considering that we do provide give funding for adults on probation for gun convictions, gun offenses. But now we're seeing that younger population more and more possessing guns, using guns for the commission of other acts too. So also trying to rethink that as well.
And I also think we could, there's a little, touch and go on this, and for the folks who are left from the judiciary, is to rethink. Oh, and Rosemary, I talked to Judge Richardson about this before, and I'm happy to re-up the conversation, which is to sort of rethink the youth parts, you know, a little bit in the sense of borrowing something from problem-solving courts and, you know, other courts where there's shorter court adjournments, even as the young person is on probation or whatever. So there's these pieces of accountability because you need more accountability also for for the young people involved in these crimes, right? And so to like my dream would be to broaden the youth parts of 16 to 24, but that's a whole different story. But if we can start small and the youth parts themselves as they exist today, have them be more like staffed with also similarly to substance use courts, or I don't know, like there's lots of things we can do both at the probation level, at the community level, and at the judiciary as well, I think, where there's that kind of like when a young person comes back to the court, and so long as they haven't been rearrested, but if they're having struggles, then it's a problem solving convenient, like there could be a restorative justice bent to this too. And like I think that we can think through a lot of this to for some good, either pilots or testing some concepts.
I would love to meet with you and further this discussion from our office's perspective as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we can facilitate that meeting. Anna, we can facilitate that meeting if you wish.
Sure.
And Anna, I did put a comment in the chat. I don't know if you saw it. If you could share the information on that paper or the study that you referenced.
Do I have a chat? No, wait. Is there a chat?
Should have a Q&A.
Oh, a Q&A. Okay, I will put it in the Q&A. Okay. Let me look into it.
And again, it doesn't have to be now. If you could just send Frank an email, we'll push it out to the commission members and the guests on the call.
Thank you.
The next kind of item that we have here relates to trauma-informed training. I think this was an ask from our office just to seek the commission's feedback or advice on what type of trauma-informed training they felt would be best applicable and best help their staff. Do we want to suggesting whether there should be different types of trauma-informed training for professionals working with youth or adults, separating those kind of trainings out? Just maybe the overall frequency of what the commission feels as far as how often professionals should be getting this trauma-informed training. Just for any feedback or advice from the commission on that particular piece. Understanding that we have talked a lot about a lot of things, so understanding this is also a very, very relevant topic.
I feel like there's a lot of trauma-informed trainings that are being offered periodically anyways. And I think a lot of that can stem from a lot of our sex offenses, whether they're juveniles, AOs, or adults. A lot of them are coming from trauma backgrounds, our clientele of whatever age group. But I have been seeing, a lot of webinars and things like that are trauma-informed. So I don't know if it's becoming a buzzword or people have kind of lost sight of what trauma-informed is or means. But I have seen quite a bit of trauma-informed training for probation anyways, or at least being offered to us.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Any other advice or feedback from the commission members on that particular item? Okay, thank you.
We're starting to get across the finish line.
Yep. And just the last item, just general training priorities for probation departments. We do offer a lot of training here within OPCA for probation departments and MI, CBIs, employment readiness trainings. But perhaps this could be a place for the commission to talk with us about maybe other areas that we haven't thought of when it comes to offering training to probation professionals, despite what we have been offering in the past.
And also on that note too, I'm sorry to interject, one more thing is the State Probation Officers Association Training Conference happens every summer. And it's a great training opportunity. Of course, then it's, funding people to get to it, but they also have great trainings there every year. It's a great opportunity for not only training, but networking and how people are doing things, but there's usually often trauma-informed training offered there as well.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Anyone from the commission can think of other training priorities that perhaps our office hasn't hit to help probation staff? Well, it sounds like we're meeting all the training need from all the probation departments across the state. At least from the commission's perspective.
Well, certainly you can reach out to us if something comes to us. I know we're getting close. We've been really slugging it out here for a couple hours, and we recognize.
Frank, if I can, this is Patty. Just folks are all aware, I think most of you are. I mean, we do kind of tease this out when we ask for your annual plan data. We recently just sent out the survey, and, I guess I should be happy that there's not any immediate feedback here that tells me that we're at least doing our job well and getting things out there. But we always are looking for, your feedback on this, ongoing priorities that you have out there. We can only see things so far from Albany, and we definitely want to hear if there's training that is a gap, like we know the supervisor's training is a gap, right? Those things, we just want to know if we're missing the mark, if we're flooding, the training with a particular training, and it's just, it's kind of getting old and stale, and you'd like to see something different. That's the kind of stuff we're looking for. So any opportunity, whether it's through the annual plan and the training committee meetings or just a phone call to our office, we're always open and willing to kind of hear what your needs are out there in the field.
Thank you very much, Patty. And this kind of leads into your next section. The commission has made a request to provide an update on a New York on Title IX NYCR Rules and Regulations, Part 346. So perhaps for the new people on this call who may not be familiar with this rule and regulation, maybe provide to them what the purpose of that rule is and also where you are in that process.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Frank. So Part 346 of the regulations deals with staff development and training. And the last time that this rule had been promulgated was in 1999, so it's woefully in need of some updates. There's been a significant number of things that have occurred since that time, right? Notably, the training requirements have increased with the basic course for peace officers. We've also wanted to take a look at, what we're asking of our staff development officers and kind of change how we function in terms of the fundamentals academies now that it is no longer a municipal police training council course and governed by that body. It is now really kind of in the hands of OPCA to govern. So we've had to shift the way that we look at all of those things. And so I can tell you, I mean, this has gone through several revisions. We've had work groups convened, I believe, all through last year. We completed that work, and we've had versions going back and forth between COPA, and just generally out in the field, and tried to really listen and accommodate as much as we can about the feedback. I think we're pretty close to a final draft. Right now, the issue is, there's some requests for us to consider changing the length of time that's required for folks to get their fundamentals training. The current regulation states 6 months, and it's been that way for a long time. The basic course for peace officers by statute, you have up, for a first year of service to get that training in. And we've got a lot of different philosophical differences here on, whether we should move this bar and make fundamentals allowable in the whole first year, like move that from 6 months to 12 months. One of the things I think is driving that conversation is the lack of access currently for folks to be able to get the training. I think that's the core of the issue, and we've been trying to address that by getting additional academy sites up and running. Now, I don't know that that's going to, immediately provide relief, but I think that as we get more sites up and running, it will provide some relief. My concern, and I think a lot of other folks, is, we don't want to delay getting folks training on how to be a probation officer, which is what the Fundamentals Academy does, any longer than we really have to, nor do we want to be in the business of issuing out waivers and having to even request waivers because folks can't get training. So that's kind of where our quandary is right now. And I know Matt and I have discussed this at length. I know Matt has brought this, up to our legal, and I believe that we are going to convene another meeting internally very soon to discuss this and come to a final conclusion. Matt, I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to throw into that pot, but I know that we, OPCA wants to be able to get the rule final, for promulgation, move this forward and put this to rest and make sure that we're meeting everybody's requests and needs. So Matt, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Sure, very, very quickly, I promise. I think importantly, as Patty described, we've sent it out, we've got feedback, we've made some amendments. I think it's important just to note that DCGS this is an example of DCGS working with the probation departments to realize that up in Albany, we can't just say this is how we think it should be without listening to the probation departments, getting their feedback and making the appropriate amendments. So where it is right now, we've listened to that feedback. We continue internal discussions. Frankly, I will say we've been an advocate for some of the things that COPA, the membership, has suggested around both what officers can and can't do before their training, as well as the time allowed to receive that training by regulation. So, I think very soon we will have our, God willing, our final amended version out to probation directors for just informal comment with one very slight change, and then we will move to rulemaking. So that's where we are as far as an update. I expect certainly by the end of the year to have something back out to probation departments for their final review.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Patty.
Matt. Any comments or feedback from the commission on this topic? We're getting closer to lunch hour, so we understand. So one next item is just the vacant probation commission position. Currently, there is a vacancy on the probation commission. This vacancy is for someone who, as a member of the community, has demonstrated an interest and involvement in the field of probation to hold office at the pleasure of the governor and until their successors are appointed. So we are looking for, and we're going to start the process of looking for a probation commission member who is someone as a member of that community holding an interest in the field of probation.
And we've moved that request up to the governor's office to get approved. So we are in the process of trying to have a full commission.
And any other business not mentioned today?
Commission members, any other business? Okay, hearing none, let us first end this by wishing everybody a happy holiday season. Hopefully filled with friends and family, and some time off to enjoy yourselves. Thank you for your dedication to this commission. I really do hope that the discussions today are an example of how further commissions really kind of operate, because it's really refreshing for me to hear the commission members, other than, OPCA, really drive the discussion. Certainly, we will be following up on the detention beds, and for Judge Zayas's comment about, we probably need a lot more information about, that issue before the commission can really make a informed decision on what the next steps are. And I thank Dr. once again for saying, how he wants to frame it, and we can put that out to the commission at that time. Without further ado, comment, everybody have themselves a great day. Enjoy the holidays, and we will reconvene on
Thursday, June 12th. It's our next scheduled probation commission meeting.
We'll get that out onto people's calendars as soon as possible.
Happy holiday, everybody.
Happy holiday.
Happy holidays.
Dr. Bucks, do you want to be the court head asked to follow up on the point of